Hello, my name is Philip Ittner, and I'm coming to you from our sound studio here in downtown Kiev. This is just a little primer to explain to you what our intentions are, what our plans are, and that is, in a nutshell, to bring to you a more comprehensive, in-depth coverage of what is happening here, who these people are, these Ukrainians, why they're fighting as hard as they are, and all the other things that sadly swirl around this current very important conflict. So, with an overture from the Taras Bulba Symphony by Ukrainian composer Mikhailo Lysenko, I hope you'll join us for this podcast, On the Edge. So, allow me to tell you a little bit about myself and what it is we intend to do here at On the Edge. So, firstly, who am I? Well, I'm a veteran broadcast journalist with approximately 30 years' experience in the field. I was born and raised partly in the Bay Area in California and partly in Michigan on Lake Huron. I graduated from San Francisco State University with a degree in broadcast journalism and immediately went to London to try and do international news. It's something I had always dreamt of doing. London was my first port of call, but it wasn't until 1998 when I moved to Moscow where I really got my first overseas posting. I was there at the tail end of the Yeltsin era, the beginning of the Putin era. I saw that transition. I recognized the threat of Vladimir Putin very early on. I was at the apartment buildings in 1999, for example, a spot where I have absolutely no doubt was a false flag in order to precipitate a second Chechen war, which, of course, bolstered Putin's cachet within the Russian Federation. I was in Moscow in 2001, September 11th, and my life took a major turn there. And it was days after the attacks in New York and D.C. When I found myself inside Afghanistan. Approximately 5 days after the attacks, I was with the Northern Alliance in a little town called Khoja Bahauddin. This started a very long period of my life in which I covered conflict. So I was in Afghanistan. I was embedded with the 3rd Infantry Division in the invasion of Iraq.
CBS News reporter Phil Ittner is in central Iraq with details.
What I can tell you at this hour is that last night the Army did indeed lose a Black Hawk helicopter. We are being told by officers on the ground that there were 6 occupants inside the Black Hawk. All hands were lost.
Deputy Bureau Chief for CBS News for many, many years in Baghdad. Numerous embeds, direct contact in combat.
CBS News producer Phil Ittner is walking with this platoon step by dangerous step through Bakuba, closing in on what is believed to be an al-Qaeda stronghold.
Repeatedly was in Syria, Libya, Lebanon, you name it, for a very long period of time. Then in 2008, Vladimir Putin decided to invade Georgia, and I was there for that. I have always kept my eye on Russia and on Vladimir Putin and on the Kremlin, because while the world was very much focused, certainly Western journalism was focused on the wars in the Middle East, I knew eventually that Putin would pose a threat and be a spoiler on the global stage because I knew the man had no scruples, that he was a despot and would willingly commit terrorism, crimes, aggression, if it suited his need, it suited his wants, and he wanted to rebuild and wants to rebuild the Russian Empire. In 2014, I was working for a short-lived experiment by the Qatari-based Al Jazeera when they tried to make Al Jazeera America. Didn't work, but it did bring me here to witness Maidan.
Us from the Ukrainian capital, Kiev. I believe, Phil, there is a cabinet meeting due today in Kiev. Plenty for them to talk about.
Maidan was another moment in time which changed my life because I made promises to people on Maidan. Because the people here knew that there was no way that Vladimir Putin, or indeed Russia as an entity, as an imperial entity, would let the cornerstone of its empire, this colony, Ukraine, go west without a fight. They knew this was going to happen, and they begged me not to turn away from them, not to turn a blind eye, as has happened sadly throughout Ukraine's history, betrayal by East or West, frankly. It has always been a pawn that has been traded between greater imperial powers. That's why one of the many reasons I feel strongly about being here. And I'm going to stick it out here until the end. I am obligated. But as I've told many people before, when this is all over, I'm going to go do things that don't involve death and suffering and destruction. Butterflies in Yosemite or something nice like that, documentaries and the like. So that's who I am. And, I want to talk a little bit about what On the Edge is going to be. First and foremost, this is not about profit. I am not doing this to make a dime. If I can break even, that's great. But I will address this once and once only because it's nobody's business but my own. Sadly, during COVID, my mother passed away, and she left me some money. So that's why I am able to do this. And that, again, is all I'm going to say about that. But I wanted you to know because inevitably there are going to be those who say that I am backed by somebody or that I have some sort of hidden agenda. I do not. I am self-funded, and my agenda is simply support Ukraine. I have been a journalist and a conflict reporter for, as I say, the better part of 3 decades, a quarter century at the very least. And in all that time, I have never taken a side in any conflict. I have tried my best to be as objective as I can. I believe that is an important role for a journalist. Everybody has bias. Journalism is made up of humans, and as such, is as flawed as human beings often are. But I always tried to be objective. This moment, however, has never been clearer to me which side I am on. And I am on the side of Ukraine, and I am against Russian empire, Russian autocracy, and the despotism of Vladimir Putin. I am unabashed about that, and I make no bones about it, and I do not apologize for it. So you know where I'm coming from. I will not put on blinders, but I have a perspective, and I'm on one side of this conflict, the side of the West, the side of Ukraine, the side of liberal democracy, because I know what Russia would have us do as an alternative to liberal democracy. The brutality of their system is not something that I would subscribe to, or would want to see the world live under the thumb of. And make no mistake about it, that's what this war is about. This war has already begun, and it will change Europe. This war is the most consequential war I have ever covered, or probably will ever cover. It will decide the fate of Europe, one way or the other. We have to decide what that fate will be. We're involved, all of us, every single human being on this planet, with few exceptions, will be affected by the consequences of this war. As goes Ukraine, so goes Europe. As goes Europe, so goes the globe, in my opinion. So we can't stick our head in the sand. We can't ignore it. And we can't drop the ball, as I contend journalism has done. Now, my criticism of the media is from a place of being inside the media and working for, Sky News, CNN, CBS, NBC, Al Jazeera, as I mentioned. I mean, I was a proverbial gun for hire for many years. I know the inside workings of that industry, and I have severe criticisms of it. Not of the people who are on the ground trying to do the job. My colleagues who are actually at the sharp end of the stick, out there risking their lives, trying to cover the news, by and large, with some exceptions, notable exceptions, sadly, and also, in an industry that is rife with ego. Some do have biases or egos or personal agendas that color the way that they cover the news. But by and large, my colleagues in that industry were trying to do the best they can. It is management that I have an issue with, and the corporate overlords and the masters who are more interested in profit than in news gathering. So the media, the Western media, has done a grave disservice, in my opinion, when it comes to the coverage of Ukraine. And I'm trying to, at least in my own very small part, rectify that. I want to present Ukraine and Ukrainians with far more depth than I contend most of the content coming out of here will deliver to you an audience. That's what I am offering you here with On the Edge. This will not be a day-to-day coverage of the war. This isn't about the scrimmage line. Cynically, some people looking at this as some sort of sport, and the mill bloggers who callously eke out where the line of conflict moves this way or that way. And there is a role for that kind of coverage, and I'm not disparaging it necessarily. I do take issue with the kind of sportsman aspect of it. This is not sports. This is life and death. That will not be, with some occasional, moments. If the news of the day warrants, I will talk about the news of the day. But generally, what I intend to bring to you is more in-depth, contextual understanding or explanation of who these people are, why they're fighting as hard as they are. We will talk to people who are have influence both here in Ukraine, but also further afield. We have the capability to be doing remote interviews, and I'll be talking to people about bigger picture issues, but also people with expertise that they can deliver, whether they live, in Europe or in the United States. I want to talk to people who have a unique perspective and can deliver more than just a surface explanation of why this war, this conflict, is so important to so many people. And I want to counter Russian information warfare. That is our intent. So I hope you'll join us. Now, in conclusion, I just want to say this will be evolving, this podcast. It will change, we'll adapt, we'll respond to what you're interested in. Primarily, we will be starting with interviews, but there is the potential, we'll see how it goes, to maybe expand out to do kind of a weekly roundup, or maybe I'll do some vlogging where I go out and do reports, some field reporting, and I'll bring it back. We'll have to see how this goes. But we have this lovely studio in central Kiev that we've set up with the purpose of having notable Ukrainians join us in studio, but also voices from further afield who will join us remotely. If you would like to support us and you like the product and the content that we deliver to you, again, this is not a money-making scheme, but it would be nice to break even, to keep the lights on, to pay the very earnest and smart and capable Ukrainian journalists that are contributing to this. I will put means to sending us a little bit of cash, whether it's Patreon or Venmo or what have you. Again, this is a work in progress. If you would like to support us, we would love to have your support. But the intent would be just to break even, and maybe, if we get successful and we get money coming in, what I promise to do is either use it to expand and get better equipment, or to fund those news gathering trips, maybe to the front, things like that. But ultimately, this isn't about profit for me. This is about conveying the news of Ukraine and showing you what is happening here and why this is so important for you. There's been a lot of discussion about whether or not the West should be involved here, whether or not the international community should be involved here, whether your taxpayer dollars or pounds or euros should be coming here to support Ukraine's resistance. I contend that it is, because I contend that a globe that is dominated by Moscow is a more desperate place, and a place that would be based on a lot of brutality and very little consideration for law or for the rights of the individual. I hope you'll stay with us. I hope you'll watch, you'll learn, you'll be entertained, but also informed. There will be rough topics discussed. This is a difficult time for this country. But in all things, there are little glimpses of light. We hope to bring that to you as well. It is not all doom and gloom here. Ultimately, when this war is over, I believe Ukraine will be a wonderful country that will contribute to the international order in a very positive way. So do stay with us and bear with us as we get up on our feet. A little bit wobbly at first, I suspect, but we'll get there in the end. And I hope that you will subscribe, that you'll tell your friends about this. If you hear folks maybe regurgitating Kremlin talking points, you'll say, maybe you should watch a few of these, and we'll see. It's a very hard thing because Russian disinformation is a formidable foe, but maybe we'll, get some chinks in the armor there, and from there, hopefully, disassemble some of the lies that are being told here, or just the lack of information and ignorance, because again, the media has, by and large, in my opinion, dropped the ball. So join us here at On the Edge.